Live. Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you today?
I am in Florida today. I am down here visiting my folks for about a week. I was planning on getting here actually over the weekend and was making my way down here via the Blue Ridge Parkway and camping, and was going to take a whole week to do that. And then we saw this giant storm coming in and, up along Florida and into Georgia, up to the Carolinas. So to avoid being stuck in a tent in a hurricane, we just packed up and got here a couple days early. So I am down in Florida today. It's clearing up. It's not as windy. I see some blue sky. And we're definitely out of the woods here. Weather's good. Back to regular Florida November weather.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're safe. And
Yeah.
it's good stuff. If you're just joining us, this is Coffee Chat. I'm Tara. This is Rachel.
We are Steady State Podcast. We do coffee chat every Friday. We love it when people join us. Lots of folks do, and we especially love it when our regulars come back. So if you are here with us regularly on Fridays, thank you so much. We know this is kind of a funny time of day, 8 a.m. out there on the West Coast. You're probably getting ready for work. And 11 o'clock on the East Coast is a little funny because you might be kind of already at work and doing your thing. But we love it when people take a break with us to talk about rowing, coaching, coxing, and all of those things.
Yeah. So you've been traveling, you've been camping. How's your rowing week going other than that?
Yeah. So rowing has not really been a part of my week this week. Well, I should say I have not rowed. I have not erged this week, but I have been planning for next season. And this is something you and I started talking about ahead of the Charles. And I've like totally ingrained this notion, Tara. You and I talked about making 2023 like fittest year ever. So, it's like you got to ramp up to that. So, one thing that I've been trying to do every day while I'm traveling is at least, it's not a lot, but at least some push ups and sit ups. Like get started, do some body weight exercises while I'm traveling. So I've had that in mind to like kind of get the winter training kicked off when I get home.
Isn't it amazing how far the other end of the spectrum we are when we have been so fit in the past? Like, I don't know what the hell is happening. Like, I'm daunted by stuff. I normally would be like, whatever. Good morning, Claudia Pace. She's post row overlooking the harbor with her coffee and egg sandwich, waiting for Hurricane Nicole. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Isn't it wild how unfit we feel? Like we're probably fitter than the average person, but still, like I could jump in a boat and row head of the lake on Sunday at 31.
Yeah, I think you're in an okay place. I mean, at least you've been rowing this season. If it's a few days a week, you got a few head races under your belt this fall. But yes, I remember when I came to visit you, was it either first or second time out there in Washington, and you took me to your trainer. And she works out of her little garage, just like the sweetest garage gym. And like, I was so excited because I was in the sort of shape that basically whatever she told us to do, I was like, I'm on it, and I've been thinking
Remember that.
And this past year has been not weird. This past year, I decided to coach. And while coaching, I really just didn't prioritize my own workouts. And I got to ramp back up because next year I'm going to prioritize rowing. Like hard pass, made that decision, going to get back to rowing.
Yeah. And, there's so much that's changed, like we're not young by any means and we're not old. Like we're in this weird middle age, right? Yeah. And I think there's a lot of knowledge there, about how to be. I'm aching in places I never thought I'd ache. I don't know what's going on, but I keep hearing Judy Gear in my mind because I don't like to scull. I like to sweep because it's off balance, right?
Yeah.
And I feel off balance.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you're probably making it worse by
By
rowing
sweeping.
sweep. So I'm like, okay.
It's so true. So yeah, when we were up in Boston, we were talking with Judy Gear. She was at the Concept 2 tent, actually on the erg, and we were talking to her while she was kind of warming up and tooling around on the erg. And no, I totally agree, Tara. I mean, I'm a hard and fast starboard side rower, and I row starboard because of it, all like an imbalance already in my legs and hips. And so what I find is my left leg, which is the inside kind of pushing, driving leg on starboard side, is just like 3 times bigger than the right one. And
Mhm.
and I need to get over that. Like I should switch to port specifically to give the right leg and the right side, a little bit more of a workload there.
Well, and also for you, you have like a lot of people have a leg length discrepancy. Like I had a leg length discrepancy for a long time. And so I would put a dish towel under that foot on the ergometer so that I would
Yeah.
push off more evenly. Well, I ran into Will Ruth. We ran into Will Ruth at the Craftsbury tent, and he was my trainer. He came from Western Washington, and he was my trainer virtually before virtual was kind of a thing, I think. And he very generously resent me the whole plan.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to like get into the training center, and I go back and forth. Like sometimes I'm like, I want to be in a small group, a class setting, because that keeps me accountable. It's something I know is going to happen rather than making my own schedule.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of inspired to do my own schedule again. And I think I just have to do it in phases. Like do the only thing for a while mixed in with like a yoga class or
Yeah.
like some other. I love classes.
This is not like a brand new concept to me, but just maybe I thought about it in a slightly different way, which is I love rowing big boats. I love that teamwork.
Me too.
But when it comes to non-rowing workouts, I'm like, just get it away from me. I like doing what I know that I can do the way that I can do it. And I don't know if part of that comes from knowing that I have an imbalance in my legs and that I need to make accommodations on certain things. So I'd rather just kind of like be on my own. But when I was younger, I used to love gym classes. I don't know. Maybe I'll find something to do this year to get myself or
Yeah.
over the winter. I mean,
I think if you can infuse like something maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, that's like Zumba or just like a different way to move your body,
yeah,
or take a dance class, or take a um you know it's fun because it's happening. They expect you to be there. You paid for it. There's all that kind of thing. Like if I go to the indoor training center for the rowing club, it's my plan that I'm bringing with Will Ruth. No one's telling me to be there.
yeah,
And I usually get really impatient and frustrated about seeing results.
yeah, yeah,
Like I want to see it on the scale. I want to see it in my clothes. I want to see it in my arms. Like I get really into like results. And the only time I have to say, the only time I've ever seen results is when I've done something really consistently for like 9 months.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you really have to be like,
Yeah, yeah. By the end, I would say during a rowing season, from like March to July is like development, and then July to October, November, then I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see that my body is different and stronger and faster and all those sorts of things. But hey, listen, I wanted to say hi to Sophie Brown, who's with us today. Thank you, Sophie, for joining us. It's always awesome when you're here. She says that sculling has really evened her up, and it's worth a go. So,
all right, I'm gonna
yeah,
try it. I have my own double. There's no excuse. I just need to find a doubles partner.
yeah.
Um, I would rather stroke, because do you have the 4-oar rule in your club when you're a club member? There's a 4-oar
Uh,
rule.
so we actually, let me think about this because
Do you have to
I'm
shut
not really.
down? Because does your river freeze?
It rarely freezes, but I should know this, but I've not really been a part of the sculling program in the past. And then usually, like it's most common for people to go out with coaches in launches. If you have a single, I mean, most people are off the water at the end of the season, meaning November. I think the rule is water plus air temperature needs to equal whatever that is, whatever that US rowing rule is.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then you're not supposed to be out on the water. But I don't know if there's a for or rule specific.
Yeah. Our 4-or rule went into effect Monday.
Yeah.
We had Head of the Lake on Sunday, which is the West Coast, kind of Super Bowl.
You
And there
said it
was,
was so windy, right?
oh my God, 32-mile-an-hour gusts coming from the south. They closed the warm-up area. They shortened the course to 3250.
Okay.
It was, and then they would tease you and they would send you Instagram lives from the start line where it was totally flat. And we were like,
Yeah, yeah.
like we had literally a 60-pound coxswain, this tiny little 4-foot tall person
Yeah.
who their shoes were soaking wet by the time they even launched.
Yeah.
There was puddles, this deep in the parking lot.
Yeah.
It was crazy, but so fun. Every crew came, Oregon, California, Japan. You got to see the Huskies. You got to be in the boathouse.
Yeah.
So the boathouse, it's funny. Someone said to me yesterday when they went into the boathouse, it felt like a ski lodge. And it does because it's this big cafeteria. So it feels like a ski lodge and all these really wet, cold people,
Yeah.
right? So it really had the ski lodge feel to it. The downer to that, which is a little bit of a segue into what one thing we were going to mention today, was that I noticed that there was the propaganda that we heard about in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in the bathroom, and I was in the bathroom. And it was propped up against the mirror, and I thought, "What's that?" And it said "icon," and I was like, "Oh, hold on, I know what icons is." And I flipped it over, and I'm sorry I don't have it with me, but it's a card. And some of you may have gotten this when you were in Boston. So what this is it's a petition by this group called Icons. Basically, they're saying they're the International Council of Women in Sports.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where the N comes in, but I don't know. And they have specifically a petition to US Rowing to basically they're saying that biological sex, meaning the sex you were assigned at birth, biological sex, the parts that you have equal a gender identity. Those are the only people who can row in women's rowing.
Yeah, I actually have the petition up in front of me. Do you mind if I'm just going to read one little paragraph?
Yeah, please do.
It says, we petition U.S. Rowing and all other governing bodies influencing rowing policy to protect female athletes from discrimination and exclusion on the basis of their sex by defining eligibility for the women's girls categories to participants born female. Women and girls of all ages deserve access to fair competition and training and victory equal to that of their male counterparts. And they go on. And they have petitions similar to this for a few other sports specifically. And it is interesting that we've started to see this floating around at Head of the Charles and now at Head of the Lake. U.S. Rowing's policy, U.S. Rowing's transgender policy allows transgender athletes to participate in rowing activity in accordance with the athlete's expressed gender identity.
Right.
So lots of conversations need to be had here. I don't think there's going to be an easy answer.
No.
I'm glad that you and I caught this and that we are starting to talk about it amongst, like you and I are starting to talk about this. I think that there's an opportunity for a larger discussion to be had kind of as a third party looking at it from both perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about how I have a connection to one of the people that signed their name to the executive committee. I did some research on everybody whose name is on this list on the executive committee, and I made notes about each of them. And the tying factor, there is a couple of tying factors. Many of them rowed for Cal. All of them were part of either the 1976 rowing team or the 1980 rowing team.
Okay.
And I even read an interview with one of them who they say, I am a child of Title IX.
Okay.
But it seems like the Title IX, the people who were the first out of the gate beneficiaries of Title IX, who really benefited from Title IX, were college age-ish women, 19, 20, 21-year-old women, biological cis women, who were at the national level in between 76 and 81, essentially.
Mhm.
And their names are on this as these kinds of leaders. There's also a Cal connection with a lot of them as well. But I do know Carol Brown. She lives here in Seattle. I wonder if she's the one who helped distribute them in the Seattle area.
Mhm.
Or I did get glared at. I actually went around the cafeteria and like picked up
Did
as many
you?
as I could find. I did. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I got really glared at by some guy. I don't know who he was, but
Hmm.
I also handed it off to one of our NPR reporters, Marcy Stillman, who actually is a rower, a longtime rower. And she was standing at this table where the awards were. And I was like, Marcy, have you seen this? And she
Yeah.
was like, what is this? And so I told her what it was and how I was trying to grab all of them. And I said, this is really not good, because I know from Vashon, we had at least 4 kids that were there that identify as trans,
Mhm.
all kinds of on the spectrum.
Mhm.
I mean, how harmful is that to see that
Yeah.
the sport that they finally found as kids, where they belong and they have a good time, actually has haters?
Yeah, and there are people trying to push them back out.
Yeah.
Um, as not really an aside, but I happened to in the last couple of days, and I shared this with you. I found something called the non-binary running guide, and I
Yes.
have not had time to like thoroughly digest this thing, but I am going to pick through it with a fine-tooth comb. It is professionally put together, beautifully designed, very thoughtfully produced document about including non-binary divisions. This is specifically for running, but I mean, there's definitely room for like Steady State Network to take up the mantle and create one of these specifically for rowing. And what I love about it, it's not just like, yes, it should be allowed. It is like, here are the questions you should be thinking about if you want to, like, as a regatta organizer.
Yeah.
Here are the things that you should be thinking about if you want to offer a non-binary division. Why do you want to do it? How are you going to make it happen? What like problems are you solving? And I think it's fantastic. I will definitely be massaging this into a rowing related thing. I think it's so important.
Yeah. And interestingly, I saw that it's actually something that came out of Seattle when I dug a
No.
little bit into it. It's actually something that's here.
Hmm.
So it might be someone that we could talk to or say, hey, so what's the inspiration behind this? And how have you helped people put this into play? There's a lot of independent guides to these kinds of things. And like as a barber, I'm part of an international initiative called the Dress Code Project, which helps salons and educates salons on how to be more inclusive
Yeah.
and create safer spaces.
Hmm.
And their whole model is, here's the things that you can do. And they educate on the language. They educate on how to use pronouns. They
Hmm.
educate on how to do gender neutral pricing or whatever. And we talked at one point about like running an indoor event
Yeah.
where CZOR did this, where you actually, from a drop-down menu, you chose your identity, and then we made categories based on who signed up.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to join the men's 500 or the women's 2000. I'm going to join a 2000 meter category, and
Hmm.
I identify as X.
Hmm.
And then you go from there, because
Yeah.
you probably don't know. Like we said we were the first sort of like publicly acknowledged trans ally, queer ally, like all in one boat kind of thing,
Yeah.
and put ourselves on that stage. But we were by no means the first trans rowers to go down the Charles or trans ally or queer ally.
Yeah.
But I mean, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like how many people have come before us and have been completely just, they've been trans their whole life and they just don't, it's not, they're not flying a flag or anything.
Yeah.
So, definitely worth a conversation. I actually wouldn't mind having someone like Liam, who was on a previous episode from
Oh
Duke.
yeah.
Liam, very well spoken, very much an inclusion expert,
Yep.
trans man. And with like Carol Brown, like,
Yeah.
hey, let's have a real conversation. Like, what's
Yeah, I think that we absolutely should. Our podcast episode on trans rowers that was in our first season, and it to this day is one of the most downloaded episodes we've done, and that was going on 2 years now. So I think it's definitely time for a new one, and I love the idea of having both sides of the conversation because you and I are pretty firmly on one side of the debate. And I think if we invite someone like Liam, who is a trans rower and an advocate, we could balance that out with someone from Icons. And I haven't directly spoken to anyone on that side of the issue, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's really important for me to hear that firsthand from folks and what their side of the story is.
Yeah, because I have a feeling that the Title IX people are like, we fought long and hard to be
Yeah,
able to have this equality.
yeah,
Like, I see the side of
yeah.
the conversation. Um,
Hmm.
and interestingly, when I was discussing it with a friend the other day, how everybody's really focused on the male-bodied rowers becoming
Yeah.
female, not
Hmm.
the female-bodied rowers becoming male. Like, they're not as
Hmm.
concerned about that. But
Yeah.
there's this like physiological difference, and there's all this science-based study and this thing. And my question, and then I read about it all over the place, was why don't they just do like weight divisions like they do in boxing, or go
Hmm.
back to like a light, like there's no men's and women's division. There's lightweight, open weight, heavyweight,
Mm.
and there's not men's and women's, and also classifications like in para rowing or something. And there's actually a lot of discussion about that approach.
Mm.
Now, Willow, who was our trans athlete in our boat, is M to F. And Willow's argument is very open about that. I'm not outing Willow at all, but was very open about the fact that they are being like lumped into the same group as like Leah Thomas, who's 6'5" swimmer.
Yeah.
Very much a bigger athlete. And Willow's like smaller, way smaller than me, like
Quite petite. Yeah.
quite petite
Yeah.
and small. And she's like, why would I be compared to a like
Basically, she's like,
the stereotype of a cis male? Like
yeah,
there's so many kinds of men. There's
yeah,
so many kinds of men.
yeah. Well, I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. I think it's really interesting. I can't wait to kind of get my fingers into this non-binary running guide. I think that this is going to
Yeah.
help me get my brain wrapped around the issue a little bit better and start thinking about how to implement some things on the rowing side. And you and I talk about a lot of things that we want to do, and we do have like a handful of big projects, but I think that I want this one on that list. I think there's room for us to create a really important document to help clubs and regatta directors move forward with this. I think that US Rowing offers a certain level of guidance, but it's pretty vague right now. So
Yeah. I wanted to point out that we have a new episode coming out tonight, tomorrow,
yes.
hopefully. And it's with Allison Mueller, and we are so smitten with Allison Mueller because she's a former US Rowing Communications Director. She's a communications person. She's been done journalism and all kinds of fun things, but she's kind of most notably she rowed what was called the mother-daughter single at the Charles, which meant
She's about 5 months pregnant.
you could tell though in that
Yeah.
picture that you posted on our Instagram feed, you could tell that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So really cute episode. It's kind of a mini episode. It's only like half an hour, so it's a little bit of a chunk.
Yeah, we definitely could have dug in a little bit deeper with her because she does have such an interesting background. But we called her up and we were like, we just think it's amazing that you rode at a Charles 5 months pregnant. And we wanted to talk to her a bit about that. She participated in 14 regattas. No, excuse me. She participated in 7 regattas this season, 15 events, 14 of those while pregnant. And she just on her own social media feeds has created this what I'm calling like a little marketing campaign about baby on board and mother-daughter singles.
Mhm.
So, she's like, oh, I didn't do anything special, but, 5 months pregnant, chugging along in the Head of Charles women's 30s, 40s singles event was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We did also talk to her about the work that she does. She was the communications director for US Rowing, like you said, for several years, and now is a communications business owner. And she leads up or has led up the media venues at large events, including under 23 World Championships. She went to the Rio Olympics as a U.S. rowing communications director, and then again on as an independent business owner, she was at Tokyo 2020, heading up the entire rowing, kayak, canoe media venue. And she was there for 3 months as part of the Olympics and Paralympics. And she talks kind of nicely about being there to see kind of the agony of defeat of athletes.
Yes. Yeah. Her story, I'm sure we could have asked her a million stories, but her stories about how she would be standing on the dock and someone would come back from their row having either achieved the dream
Yeah.
or not achieved the dream. And of course, there's usually only one person who's achieved the dream, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. The winner of the heat or the winner of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And she said she was seeing them before they saw their families, before they saw their coach. So she saw them in a very raw way. And she said they were just the most world-class athletes and amazing to be around and just crazy good. So that comes out tomorrow to the public, hopefully, and tonight to our Patreons. You can always become a Patreon and get the skinny a little bit early and get that episode. And I'm really excited that we are heading into season 4. Can you believe it?
Oh my gosh. So season 4, well, yeah. So I guess we'll wrap up season 3 at the end of this year, season 4 in 2023. But Tara, we do have a little bit of a download on our next episode after Allison. We're going to be talking with somebody that you basically pulled aside at Head of Charles. This is a man you cannot miss if you're at a regatta. 6'9", 6'9".
6'9".
Isaiah Harrison. He kind of came to rowing prominence, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago as basically a homeschooled teenager who started erging, and he just set all the records you can set on the Concept 2 indoor rower.
Yeah, so the story was his dad bought an erg, and they're all very tall, very athletic people. They live on a private lake in Idaho. And his dad bought an erg, and he decided he would try it, and he started breaking all these records. And his dad actually went and got US Rowing 1 and 2 coaching certifications.
That's awesome.
Bought him a single and taught him how to row. And the kid is unaffiliated. Yeah. I met him for the first time at Northwest Ergomania. He walked in, and I was like, and there's a whole entourage of them. They're all super tall, super athletic looking. They're also very, very, very religious family, and they're very conservative. So it should be a very interesting conversation about his world travels. And I'm excited to talk to him. He's very sweet, and his dad's his manager, and I went through his dad and all that stuff. I want to acknowledge that Claudia Pace just said, did we listen to the RowCon preview last night? Claudia, I missed it. I couldn't listen to it. I had to work. But please tell us any highlights, and I'm sure we could go in today on YouTube probably and watch the presentation.
I have to admit, I also missed it here doing some family things, but I am interested in US RowCon next year. That's late February, early February.
Yeah, it's in Atlantic City.
Oh, no, that's right. It's early February, and I'm not going to be able to make it because I'm going to be at Erg Sprints, which is a huge indoor rowing event in Virginia. But I in a way like this notion of a longer drawn out event where lots of rowing related things are happening. So I will check it out. Claudia, let us know what you think about it, if anything caught your attention. And are you going?
We had some exciting news this week. We obviously have sponsors who make Steady State Network possible, and we're really excited to have Breakwater Realty, which is located in Portland, Maine, and Lake Western Rowing Club, who is just the hosts of the Head of the Lake Regatta here. But Concept 2 has returned not only for 6 months, but they have returned for an entire year as a sponsor at the silver sponsor level with Steady State Podcast.
High fives! We're so excited to have Concept 2 back on board for another year. They've just been amazing too. It's one thing. It's very nice to have their dollars to help us do what we're doing, but just in general, they're just such good people, and I really felt that when I went to Boston. Like everybody. We talked to the owners, the Dreisagacker guys. We talked to Judy Gear. We talked to Meredith Breland, who's their communications director. All of them like gave us hugs, welcomed us in, made sure we were doing all right. Yeah, they're good people up there.
They're just open arms kind of people. Yeah. And, you know, like I felt like when we got those weird oars, like we used those comp oars, I was like, I don't know anything about these oars.
I'm not sure you should call them weird, but
well, they're new.
They are new design.
They're new shape for a sweep oar. It's not a new shape for a sculling oar, but it's a new shape for a sweep oar.
Yeah.
They ended up being amazing. Like it ended up being you didn't get to row with them, but they were very precise and they were very cool. So they're called comp oars and they're amazing. That's my review of them. I need to get going, but I have to say we haven't talked since the message came in on Instagram.
Oh, how could we forget? Okay, so if you guys don't know, Tara loves Jevy Stone. U.S. Olympian Jevy Stone. Beautiful woman. Incredibly talented.
Vision.
And I don't know, somehow she comes up in conversation all the time. And in Boston...
I bring her up
all the time. And in Boston, you were like texting her, you were trying to get through on all her different social media feeds, like, we're in Boston, God, let's try and meet up.
Well, I was asking like everyone, I'm like, have you seen her? Have you seen her?
Yeah, can you connect us? And then what happened? Tell me what happened recently.
Well, while we were in Boston, I sent her a DM. Well, there was the moment when we went out for our warm-up where we had heard she'd been spotted earlier that day and that she was volunteering on Friday. And we launched our 8, and someone had said she'd be volunteering on the river, doing, crowd control on the river.
Yeah.
And I'm in 3 seat, and I see this person in the lunch boat with a megaphone talking, and I'm like, Rachel.
And I was like, shut up, Tara, I'm coxing. Yeah.
I couldn't be like, it's Jevy. So at the end of the event, we were kind of doing all of our wrap messages, and I said, hey, we're huge fans. I sent her DM on Instagram. So, hey, we're huge fans. We'd love to find you in Boston. And anyway, she wrote back on Tuesday, and she said, sorry I missed this. You were in my unknown senders. Next time. And I wrote back, would you and your mom do a podcast episode with us? And she said, I don't see why not. We could totally make that happen. I'm like,
this is awesome. I'm happy for you. And I'm really excited that you followed, not just followed it, but like you had the initiative to try and reach her while we were in Boston. You were like, let's just give it a try. And this is another one of those cases where you just don't know until you ask. And what we keep learning is that as long as we keep asking, people keep saying yes, basically.
Absolutely.
Rowers love to talk about rowing, and we really haven't had anyone say, no, I don't want to talk to you. No, I'm not interested in being on your podcast, or no, I'm not interested in doing a little Instagram live with you. People just love to talk about rowing. So this could be exciting if we could get her on by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think it's good because, some people might have thought like, oh, you had Eric Murray. That's not really a real life rower, but and Jevy Stone would not qualify as a real life rower either. But everybody was a real life rower when they started, so that's a good argument. And then having her mom on, who was 1976 team in the pair, can't even.
Yeah,
like I have no words for that.
It'll be amazing. We'll talk about pairs rowing a whole
The
bunches
perfect
and
stroke.
the perfect stroke. This could be an interesting one and a little bit different. We kind of come at it a little bit different way than we have some of our other episodes.
So tomorrow is Allison Mueller. 2 weeks from now is Isaiah Harrison. 2 weeks after that, I think, is actually the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So we're gonna need to get that together, and hopefully that will be Jevy. We have some other ones, but we need to do a club spotlight soon. So if you have a club that you think we should look at, we're talking about Down East Rowing Club in Maine. We've talked about someplace in the
Right.
Midwest.
Right now, there's a whole list.
Yeah, there's a whole list. All right. Well, I'm gonna get going. This has been really fun. I hope you have fun in Florida.
Thanks.
Is Paval with you?
Yeah, he's here with me, and the dog's here with me, and we are going to be here through the middle of next week. And then the next time I talk with you, next Friday, I am most likely going to be in the Outer Banks in North Carolina.
What? I love Outer Banks.
Yeah. We're gonna be heading back up north. We're driving and probably gonna stay up there for just a few days. It's gonna be that time of year where it's like 50, 60 degrees and overcast on the beach, but it is dead quiet in the Outer Banks in November.
Yeah.
We're gonna find a cheap Airbnb and hang out for a few days, get a little bit of work done. So I will see you from the Outer Banks on next Friday.
I'm so jealous. I went to the Outer Banks when I was a freshman in college.
Yeah.
I was driving back to New York State, and I convinced my parents to let me drive all the way out to Outer Banks, spend a week in the Outer Banks by myself in January.
Wow.
And then drive northbound and pick up my friend in Philadelphia. What was that?
Wow. Yeah, well, that must have been really quiet in January and
So
the Outer
cold.
Banks. Yeah.
And I stayed in this precious little motel. It was I took all these pictures of a lighthouse. Like I have all these pictures. Like I did all this like black and white photography, you know.
Yeah,
it was, like,
moody.
I was like 19. What was I thinking? It was amazing. You know.
You're like, let me go, have my freedom, check out new things. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Well, I will talk to you soon. Everybody else, we will hopefully see you back here next Friday for coffee chat. Have a fantastic rowing weekend and rowing week. And as always, we'd love to know what you're up to. So text, email, drop us a line, however you want. We'd love to know what you're doing.
Yeah. But,
all right, Tara. See ya.
See ya.